Good morning, everyone. This is Greg Lord with the Maine Forest Service. Hope you all were able to join without too much trouble. I'll ask everyone to mute their microphones and turn off their cameras, and I'll just show you how to do that in Teams if you're not familiar. Just going to share my screen here. So in Teams, in the upper right-hand corner, there is a little microphone here where you would click on it to mute or unmute. We'd ask everyone to just mute their microphones at this time just to save bandwidth for everyone and make sure everyone can hear good. And then also just to the left of that is a camera. You just click on that to turn it off or on, and again, ask everyone to keep their cameras off for now. And then if you have any questions during the process, there's a couple different ways to do that. There is a raise your hand. Click on that and it'll show a little icon next to your name in the list. So we know that you have a question you want to ask. The other way to do it is just to the left of the hand is show conversation. If you click on that, you can, along the right-hand side, down at the bottom is a place to type in a message or comment and post that, and we can address it that way. Let's see. Yeah, just so you know, we still have, this is a work in progress. FOResT will probably continue to develop over time. So there's still some tweaks that we're going to show you that are going to be changing. But for now, actually, FOResT is out there for people to submit notifications to us on. And before I hand it over to Mort and Dan to do the overview, I did want to thank our team that worked for well over 15 months now to get this in place. And those members are Stephen Nicholas, Adam Cates, Greg Miller, George Harris, Joe Mintz, Don Mancius, Morton Mosswild, and recently added Dan Jacobs. So welcome, everyone. I hope this is a very informative session for you. And please, if you have any comments or questions, you can post them during the session or as well as after. We're more welcome to hear from you so that we can make this a better product for everyone. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to let Mort and Dan take it over from here.
And I should make a comment that this is being recorded.
Yes. Yeah, we're recording it also.
So good morning, everyone. This is Mort Mosswild. I'm just going to start sharing the presentation and turn it over to Dan to begin.
Can you hear me, Mort?
Yep.
Okay, I guess it's go time. My name is Dan Jacobs. I'm a district forester with the Maine Forest Service, and I'm going to be delivering about the first 1/3 of the slides in this overview presentation on FOResT, the FOResT online resource tool. And then I'm going to hand it off to our field team leader, Mort Mosswild, and he will finish off the presentation. And then the second half of the session today is going to be Greg Lord doing a detailed demo of the FOResT system. So I think things will become very clear and come together a lot better once we get to the point where Greg is going through the demo. And I believe Greg and Mort in the past have asked to possibly save questions till the end of the presentation, although there may be an opportunity to answer some as we're going through the slides. Do you want to advance, Mort?
Yep.
So the purpose of today, this is going to be an overview presentation. We'll give the background, a little bit of history and rationale behind the development of the system. an overview on how the system works and the basic functions. So I'll cover these first two bullet points at the top, and then Mort will focus on the last two bullet points, which are the brief walkthrough of the process and the timeline for the rollout and introduction of this. And then again, Greg Lord will be doing the in-depth demo, I believe, after we take a short break. Just to mention, this webinar is going to be repeated, I believe, multiple times in January and February. So you will have an opportunity, if you feel like you missed something today, you'll be able to go to another webinar and view this all over again. I think you can advance, Mort.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of history on the notification process. And up front, I should say that if I use the term FON, F-O-N, that will be interchangeable with timber harvest notifications or forest operation notification. FON is just interchangeable with those terms. So the FON process began with the Forest Practices Act of 1989. The earliest or oldest FON that I have seen is dated 1991. So I'm guessing that's a little bit before my time. I'm guessing that the system probably went into effect in 1990 or 1991 at some point. So everybody that's harvesting timber, with a few exceptions, is required to notify the Forest Service, submit a forest operations notification. Up until now, that's been a paper form and kind of a set of carbon copy forms where the landowner gets to keep one. These are submitted through the mail to the Forest Service. The data from these has all been entered over the years into a computer system. So there's been a lot of data entry that's gone along with this system. When you send in a FON, you will get a response in the mail. And if you have any changes to your harvest plan or the operation, then you will submit or should submit a paper amendment form. So there's 30 years of paper, which I've got to tell you, I'm a forester. I like paper. I like paper tally sheets. I like my Write in the Rain field notebook pretty well. So I'm either the worst person to give this presentation or the best. But I will tell you that I'm critical when it comes to these new technologies. So I will give you the facts and my honest opinion. And I think that this new system you will find has some very good benefits that go along with it for everybody. The other piece of paper that is generated or is required is a landowner report for the lifespan of the harvest up to 2 years. That's completed at the end of each year. So this has resulted in a lot of paper that's had to be archived. It's resulted in a lot of hours of time to do the data entry. It's resulted in the expense of a lot of postage over the years. And there's a lot of reasons to move ahead with this new system and bring us into the 21st century with our notification. I think you can go ahead, Mort. So the rules for notifications, they are Maine Forest Service Rule Chapter 26. This rule can be found on our website, mainforestservice.gov. It can also be found on the Secretary of State website, and you can use the link that's on this slide to get to Chapter 26. And it might be worth reviewing Chapter 26 because there are some exemptions to the notification process that may apply in your specific situation. If you're familiar with the current system, there's a 6-digit notification number that goes along with every FON. The 6-digit number is printed on the bottom of the paper form. And this will be changing to a 7-digit number. And I believe Greg or Mort can talk more about this. I believe that the 7-digit number may include the date, month, and some other figures in there as well. According to the rules, the FON number must be posted at the principal yard or log landing for a harvest operation. Could also be the main access to multiple yards, but that 6-digit number at a minimum has to be posted in a visible location. The FON number is also used on trip tickets when wood is hauled for its first measurement. Advance, please. So what is FOResT?
I've done a lot of meetings. And
FOResT is an online system that allows users to complete notifications for the Maine Forest Service for timber harvesting operations. It gets us away from paper, again, moves us into the 21st century, and it's got some very good features. This rollout of this new system started in January, I believe January 1st of this year, and there is a timeline for complete introduction and the phase out of paper FONs. From my understanding, the paper FON system will be done away with April 1st of this year, and we will be completely electronic. So I think Mort and Greg will speak a little bit more on that. This current system has been under development for about a year, or excuse me, it's been under development for a little over a year. I've been working with it for just a couple of months in a demo version. The product was produced by Maine Forest Service staff working with a private contractor. Greg Lord was the team or project leader for this, and he's been with it from the beginning. I think Greg Miller, our GIS expert, has been with this from the onset as well. We've also had folks from the private forest product sector involved. We've had landowners, foresters, and others help provide input and utilize the demo to give us some feedback. So I think it's been well researched and well thought out over that period of time that it's been developed. We're expecting that there's going to be a number of questions today. In the past webinars, I've been to all the webinars so far as a participant or attendee, and there's been a lot of good questions. I think we're going to continue to get those questions, and we have a complete list summarized of the questions that have been asked so far and the answers on our website. So I'll give you a little bit of direction to get to that in just a minute. And I think Mort will also give direction to get to that Q&A area of the website. And we're looking for feedback. So Greg had mentioned briefly at the onset of this webinar that this is still a little bit of a work in progress and there's still room for improvement. We've worked out a lot of the bugs. Greg has worked out a lot of the bugs, but not all. So we welcome feedback. You can advance, Mort. This is a list of some of the key features of the FOResT system. Like I mentioned before, this is going to be an online web-based notification and landowner report system. The notifications, this is a really good feature of it. Notification process follows the paper structure very closely. So the questions in this new system are either the same or very similar to what you had on your paper version of the FON. So for folks that have filled out a FON before, this is going to be a pretty familiar set of questions that you'll have to answer. Each user is going to be required to set up an online account. We will go through that process at least a couple of times this morning, and it's a pretty simple process to go through. One of the things that I like about this system that I think is very well done is the digital mapping. That's one of the steps. A map of the harvest site is required to be submitted with the FON. This is done digitally in the system now. It's pretty easy to use, pretty intuitive. If you're familiar with Google Maps or Google Earth, the way that you move around in these maps is very similar. The way that you lay out your harvest area, you put in your roads and your streams on the map, a very simple process. And there's also some nice check features within the digital mapping. So for example, the area calculation. When you put in your harvest block, there will be an area calculated, and that area must be less than your parcel size. And it's also a good check in that area against the area that you enter into one of the questions further in the FON. So there's a couple of really nice features with digital mapping. The FOResT, the process of doing a notification in FOResT is step by step, and the user will enter the data. The step by step process is very nice in that you can't move from one step to another without completing the prior step properly. So the system just doesn't let you advance unless you've completed the step that you're working on. The process requires digital signatures. All parties that are on a notification will end up being notified when the notification is complete and accepted. And the system is also going to have a little notification to complete your landowner report at the end of the year. So a lot of good features that go along with the FOResT system. You can advance more. This is the FOResT homepage, and this is accessed from the main Forest Service homepage. There's a big button that says FOResT on our homepage, so it's really easy to get to this. You can see in the upper right, there is a place to sign in, a little button, and you can see in the lower right, within a box, there is a place to create an account. There's a button called Create Account. So those are two things I'll just point out on this. When you get to the FOResT page from the home page of the main Forest Service website, there's a lot of information on that page. There's the question and answer section. There's also some videos. There's some links to get in touch with us if you need to be emailing with us to answer some questions. So there's just a lot of good background and user information on the FOResT webpage. I think you can advance more. This is an overview of the user functions, and it's a little bit set up in a step-by-step process as you would fill out a notification using the FOResT system. The first thing that you need to do is create an account. Everybody that's using the system that's going to be listed on a notification has to have an account set up, and we'll talk about that in some detail in a couple of minutes. If you already have an account, you can sign in to that existing account, and from there, when you sign in, you will go to what we call the dashboard. You'll immediately be taken to this dashboard screen, and I will show you a screenshot of that in just a second. From that dashboard, you can do a number of different things. One of the things that you can do is create a new notification. There's a button for that, and we'll talk about that dashboard screen in just a minute. You'll want to, as with the paper notification, identify your role in the harvest. This includes landowners, designated agents, licensed foresters, and harvesters. I'll cover a little bit more detail on that in just a minute. We've already talked about the digital mapping So you will map the location of your harvest, any roads that are being put in, and any stream crossings that are being put in. And there's some nice things that go along with the digital mapping. Once you've done some mapping, there are some little notices that come up at some points to notify you that maybe you're crossing a PSL2, and there's some things to think about regarding that. Or you're working in a PWL in a Chapter 27 town, and there may be some things to consider along with that. So the mapping really does have some nice features that go along with it. From the dashboard screen that you'll see in a minute, you can get into draft notifications that you have not yet completed, and you can edit those and get those ready to be completed. You can also, in the FOResT system, sign and certify completed notifications, and you can manage notifications, whether they're pending, active, or inactive. So that dashboard will give you a good sense of what's going on within your account with the different notifications that you may have. Advance. This is what you will do to create an account. This will be demoed again by Greg in just a little while. When you get to the FOResT homepage, there is that box in the lower right-hand corner of the page with a button for Create Account. Hit that. You will need an email address, and you will need to create a password. And you can see in this on the right side of the slide, that is the information that needs to be entered to set up your account. So your name, email address, a password that meets all the different rules for the password in FOResT. Confirm your password. Setting up account in FOResT is very similar to setting up any online account. And then you will be issued a FOResT ID number. I think Mort is going to get into the real nuts and bolts of how the FOResT ID number is used. But if you can get into and sign in to FOResT, your FOResT ID number will be displayed on the dashboard. So the key is to not forget your password so that you can at least sign in, and then you're pretty good to go. Let me just see if I have any other notes on this. The only other thing that I'd like to say about creating an account is it's pretty simple. And I went through that process in just a couple of minutes. Not a big deal. You can advance more. The sign-in process, pretty simple as well. When you get to the FOResT homepage, you will click the sign in button, which is in the upper right of the screen, and you will be asked to sign in using your email and your password that you created. Pretty simple. Then if you look at the lower right of this slide, you will see a little image of the dashboard. I believe that's the dashboard. With my poor eyesight, I can barely see that little screenshot. So in any event, that gets you going when you sign in. And we'll get into that dashboard. I think the next slide shows a really good close-up of the dashboard. Okay, in this dashboard, in my view, the dashboard is nice because it gives you an overview of all the different activity in your account. You can see there's a button there to create a notification. There is also a box that shows your pending notifications. And the pending notifications, these are ones that have not been completed and certified. They do not have a notification number linked to them yet. You can view these. And also under the pending notifications, you may have a draft notification that you're still working on, one that you haven't entered all the information yet. You can open that by clicking on view, and you can edit that and complete the form. Then we have the active notification box below in this slide. You can see that the active notifications have a 7-digit number assigned to them. These cannot be changed and edited, but you can go in and view these, and you can view the information that's contained within them. I think I mentioned earlier that in the upper right-hand side of the screen, you'll have your FOResT ID number. And Mort is going to explain the use of the FOResT ID in just a few minutes, but that's an important number to know. So the dashboard's kind of a good place just to get an idea of what the activity is that's going on within your account. You can move ahead, Mort. This will be my last slide, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mort, and he will finish up the presentation. So who can create notification? A landowner can create notification, and a designated agent can create notification. A licensed forester or harvester can also create a notification, but they need to be listed as the designated agent. So I tried this a couple of weeks ago, and I tried to enter data just as a licensed forester, not being a designated agent, and it wouldn't let me proceed. So that, again, one of the good features of this system is that if something isn't correct, it seems to catch it, and it won't let you advance until things are entered correctly and completely. So I think this seems like it may mean the extinction of incomplete notifications, which is good for everybody. It's good for the Forest Service, it's good for landowners, loggers, and foresters. So again, another, in my mind, good result or feature of this new system. And thank you for listening to me, and I'll hand it off to Mort now.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Mort Mosswild, and I'm going to walk through this process of creating a new notification, completing it, certifying or signing it. We use the word certify to indicate that it's being signed by the different parties of the notification. This is kind of intended to walk you quickly through the steps of creating a notification, get you a little bit familiar with what things look like and some of the terminology that we're using. Hopefully nothing is too, as Dan mentioned, too unfamiliar, because it parallels the paper system quite a bit. And so on the theory that repetition is helpful for learning, this little walkthrough is going to set you up for Greg's demo just a little bit later on. So as Dan described, when you create a new notification, it will take you to you simply click that button and it'll take you to the place where essentially you're completing different sections of the notification information. You'll start with some overview information. There's the mapping feature that Dan described, and we'll look at that a little bit more closely. There are activity details describing in more detail what the activities are that you're proposing. You'll identify who else is associated with that notification that you're creating, and keep in mind, as Dan alluded, that you may actually be playing multiple roles in a notification. So you may be the licensed forester, you may also be the designated agent, you may be the harvester and also the designated agent, you may be the landowner, and or multiple possible combinations of that. So we'll look at that more closely. And then finally, the last section is a summary and certification section where you review the information, confirm that it's accurate, and certify from your role that you agree and have confirmed that the information that's entered is correct. So it's important to bear in mind that, as Dan described, you essentially work from left to right. You complete each section before moving on to the next. That's really helpful because the way the system is set up is that it won't ask you about stuff that you're not proposing to do. It won't clutter your notification with information that isn't relevant to what you've described either in the overview or the mapping section. So unlike a piece of paper where you basically have to figure out which parts you can skip, the notification, the FOResT system will do that for you and omit the portions that aren't relevant to the work that you're planning. You can always work backward, going from right to left, go back to previous sections and edit the information, but you can't move forward without completing each section. As Dan described, on the far left is a save draft button. So at any point you can save what you've done, go do something else, go leave that for it, come back to it later to complete what you're entering. On the far right is the next button. So it allows you simply to move through the sections that you've already completed. This is essentially another way of saying the same thing, which is that, as Dan described, the landowner or the designated agent is the notifier. That's the person who's entering the notification information. In the end, the harvester and the licensed forester only need to review and certify the notification if they're listed on it, if they're not the designated agent. If you are the designated agent, then basically you're playing multiple roles and you are the notifier as well. And as I described, you essentially work your way down through the different sections, but you can always move back to a previous section to change the information or modify it in some way. So we'll go through these different sections individually. And again, I'm not going to cover every detail, but it'll familiarize you with the process, and then Greg will work through it a little bit more closely. The overview page begins by asking you to identify what your role is in the notification. And if you're creating a notification, you essentially have to identify yourself as either the landowner or the designated agent, sort of along the lines of the current system. You identify yourself as the landowner or the designated agent here, but you can click multiple boxes. So in this example that I did, I listed myself as the designated agent. I cut off the image a little bit, but you'll see over here on the right that I also checked the box that I was the licensed forester for this notification that I'm about to create. The operation schedule is identified down here. You enter the start and end date. Currently, I think the default is a 2-year notification window in which the notification is actually active. The property details are pretty simple. Again, along the same lines as the paper notification, you identify the town that you're working in, the nearest access road, and the parcel acreage. The mapping feature automatically displays the town or township that you're working in based on the property details that you just entered. So you don't have to go hunting around on a map of the state of Maine. It'll take you right to center the image in the mapping directly on the town that you identified. There are a couple of different base map options. This is the topographic view that you're seeing right here. The aerial image might be more helpful, and you can toggle back and forth as much as you like to identify on the ground where you're planning to work. You can zoom in and out, pretty straightforward. Just as Dan mentioned, a lot of online mapping, Google Earth, etc., has a very similar functionality. So anybody who's done anything online with maps at all should find this quite familiar. One of the really handy features I think you'll find is that the system will identify right away whether you're in a town that has adopted statewide standards or in a LUPSI unorganized town that would involve subdistricts. And so, or whether you're in an option 3 town, essentially a town that is neither an organized town that has not adopted statewide standards, which will quickly show you where any kind of shoreland areas or other kinds of LUPSI subdistricts are. This image that I'm showing you here, you'll notice that I'll talk about these activities that I've mapped, but this is an organized option 3 town that essentially does not show the shoreland areas. This is an option 3 town, so essentially it's still shoreland zoning, and you still have to go to the town office to find out what the shoreland zones are under municipal shoreland zoning. However, here's a town boundary, and the adjacent town is a statewide standards town. And you can see that this stream system has a 75-foot streamside area, stream protection area. So this is one of the nice features, I think, where a lot of information is being supplied to you right off the bat. This is the same image or the same location, just toggled over to the aerial image. Again, you can see that in this option 3 town, a water feature like this has no, might have shoreline zoning under the municipal ordinance, might not. We don't know. You still have to go to the town to find that out. Whereas in this town over here, you can see that shoreland area. The online mapping itself, digitizing those areas is very straightforward with mouse clicks. The harvest areas are digitized as polygons. You can essentially create a polygon with as many corners or as many clicks as you want, just clicking around the area that you're going to be harvesting. It doesn't matter whether you're doing that with 3 clicks or 4 clicks or 20 clicks. The nice feature that Dan alluded to is that as you're drawing that, it's automatically calculating the area that you're mapping. And that's a really good way to double check yourself, make sure that what you're mapping in the system matches pretty well what you think what your planned harvest area measures out to in whatever other system you're using. Road construction, new road construction is digitized as maps, as lines, essentially just a series of clicks. You do define those more closely as permanent or temporary roads. Water crossings are mapped simply with a single point click. And again, you'll identify whether those are permanent or temporary water crossings and whether they're for a road or a skid trail. You can map multiple locations in the same town. You can edit and delete. You can work on the map as much as you want until you're done. You're satisfied with what you've mapped, and it's a good reflection of what you're planning to do. So here's that same example. When you begin, you'll start by using these buttons here to draw different activities, either a harvest area, road construction, or a water crossing. Once you've done that, as I've done here, it'll list those activities down here. So activity number 1 is a harvest. The calculated size of that polygon there, that harvest area that I mapped, is 20.1 acres. The questions about permanency and structure type are irrelevant. If I didn't like the way that looked, or if I thought I'd made a mistake there, I could either edit it directly, or I could go over here and delete it and start over again. The second activity that I've mapped here is a water crossing. Calculated size is irrelevant. It's just a single point on the ground. In this case, I've identified it as a permanent stream crossing that's associated with a skid trail. And again, if I needed to move that or edit it in some way, I could do that. Or I could simply say, no, I'm not going to go there. I'll delete that feature. The roads, anytime you're digitizing, there's a question button where you can refresh your memory on how you're actually supposed to do this. So, for example, you can ask, look for this pop-up, and it'll essentially say, this is how you map road construction with just multiple points that mark the path of the activity itself, and double-click to stop drawing. For a line, obviously, you need a minimum of 2 points, but you can make a curved line or a long straight line. It's very easy. You can also go back and delete individual points along that line. So this mapping feature is pretty powerful. As we described earlier, one of the important features of FOResT is that the activity details that you enter are going to be based only on what you've presented in the overview information and the activities that you've drawn on the map. So it'll cut through a lot of the irrelevant portions of what the paper notifications used to have. It also includes some checks on what you're doing, so that you can enter the correct information and not have information that's in conflict. So as an example, the harvest size that you enter in the activity details has to be less than the parcel size. It's not a strong, accurate check of what you've mapped, but at the very least, you can't identify a harvest activity size that's bigger than the parcel itself. You can't have a 50-acre parcel and say, I'm going to harvest 80 acres on it. Another change or new part of FOResT is that it'll pre-identify, I think it's 8 categories for change of land use. So if you're identifying a change of land use, essentially it'll give you the option of identifying that as agriculture, residential construction, commercial construction, utilities, and a few other categories. So you won't have to fill that in manually. You can just pick from a checklist which most accurately reflects the change of land use that you're contemplating. The road construction questions only show, they only display if you actually mapped new roads. The water crossing questions only display if you actually mapped a water crossing. So again, this is a good way to check yourself and know that you have more information to enter if you've identified those things, but you won't be bothered with it if neither of those things are part of your planned activities. Again, you can't move from this page until it's completed and consistent in the ways I've just described with some of the previous information. As we've noted, the questions themselves are very similar, if not word for word identical with the paper FON. So I realize this is small and really hard to read, but the question, is the land that you intend to harvest taxed under the Maine tree growth tax law? Yes or no? That's the exact same wording. Will the land use change from growing forest products within 2 years? No. If you had clicked yes, you would have gotten an extra box that pops up and says, okay, identify the acreage of the change of use and the use to which the land will change. So these questions are, again, very similar, if not identical, to the questions on the paper FON. You as the notifier, if you're the person creating this notification, it's essentially up to you to identify who else is associated with this notification. So you're starting out as either the landowner or designated agent, and you can identify others who are going to be involved in some way with the notification to allow them to review and certify and sign the notification. So we described earlier that there's this FOResT ID number that essentially is your account number when you create an account. To add someone else to the notification, you have to have their last name and their FOResT ID number. So we'll show you how this works in just a second, but basically what you're doing is you're saying, okay, and the harvester is such and such with FOResT ID number such and such. Or if you're the landowner, you could identify who the forester is with their last name and their FOResT ID number. That means that there has to be some communication before you're actually entering this stuff. You have to at least talk to someone and make sure you have their FOResT ID number to be able to connect them or add them to your notification. Part of the reason for doing this this way is to sort of protect parties, protect everyone from having all your contact information, so it won't display your contact information. As long as you have the FOResT ID number, you can add someone, but you won't automatically have all your contact information distributed widely. It also kind of implies that when you are working in FOResT, when you create an account, it's probably a good idea to not share your FOResT ID number widely with everybody you know. Only share it with those people who need to know it to create a notification that you already know about, that you essentially know that someone is using your ID number to create a notification. Another way to think about the FOResT ID number, if you're someone who's ever gotten a hunting or fishing or trapping license, IF&W has what's called a Moses number. You don't really use it all that often. It's not your actual hunting license number. It's sort of your ID number that kind of rides in the background, and every year, doesn't matter if you're going to be, getting another hunting license, regular rifle season, firearm season, fishing license, whatever, your Moses number basically moves along with you regardless of the license and regardless of the year. FOResT ID number kind of functions in the same way. It's your number that connects you to the system and allows other people, in this case, to add you to the notifications that they're entering. So this is what this essentially looks like. This is the example that I created earlier. So I, as the designated agent and licensed forester, have to identify who the landowner is for this notification that I've created. So I need that landowner's, that landowner needs to have an account. And secondly, I need to enter their last name and know their FOResT ID number to be able to enter it here. And once I've done that, I click Find Landowner. And if the landowner has an account, they will pop into the system, and there are just a couple more questions to answer. If the landowner doesn't have an account, then they're going to have to create one before you can add them to your notification. So I entered this is all dummy information, of course, but I entered a landowner named Greg Lord with this FOResT ID number, and of course their information pops up. And in this case, I only need to answer a couple additional questions in terms of what their ownership size is and what kind of landowner they are. On that same contact page, if I scroll down a little bit more, the designated agent information is already populated because I, as the designated agent, was the one who created this notification. So it's put my information in there already. Just below that, in this case, I'm not the harvester, so I need to add that information again in the same way, entering the name and entering the FOResT ID number for that operator and clicking on the find button, and it will populate that FON with the harvester's information. So that all becomes relevant because I, as the notifier, have to complete this notification. I'm going to walk through the summary page, and essentially the summary page will ask me to confirm that the information that I've entered is correct. There's a checkbox for each section where I check off, yes, it is correct. It also asks me to acknowledge certain what we call notices of concern. So essentially, is there a quarantine? Is there a habitat issue, just a forest health issue that you just want to be aware of? It might identify additional actions that might be needed. So if you've identified a permanent crossing, there might be a permit by rule, a PBR, necessary, and it'll just note you've identified a permanent crossing that you're going to be constructing. A note that you will probably need a permit by rule for that. That process of submitting a permit by rule is a completely separate process. So this doesn't actually allow you to do that. It's just a check to say, hey, this is something you're probably going to need. Once you've confirmed all the information that you've entered, you certify it as the notifier, and essentially it becomes a pending notification that is waiting for the other parties on the notification to certify or to sign electronically. And the way that that happens is that they will automatically get an email asking them to certify. If you've identified, everyone that you've identified that's connected to that notification automatically gets an email with a link that leads them back to the notification and says, hey, this notification's been entered. Here's the information. Is this correct? And will you certify it in the role that you have? So either in this case, the landowner or the harvester gets the opportunity to certify it. Once everyone has certified it, that's when the notification becomes complete and active, and the notification number is generated. So one of the really important features, as Dan noted earlier, is that there really is no opportunity for incomplete notifications. If the information is not complete, you won't be able to finish the notification. It will never become active. If the notification hasn't been signed by all parties, the notification is not yet complete. It's not yet active. So I'll just show you a little bit about how this looks. The summary page here is identified as a draft. It shows the status as draft. So I'm the notifier. I'm reviewing the summary page before I complete it, and it'll get sent off to the other parties. So it's showing me all the information that I've entered, essentially the contacts here, who's involved, the landowner. Again, I'm the designated agent, and so forth. It'll show you the overview information, when the operation will start and end, the town, county, the name of the road, our parcel acreage, all the information that I supplied. And then it's going to ask me to confirm the information that I'm looking at. So this is sort of my last opportunity to say, no, something's wrong here. I need to go back and fix it. The language here, this says mark as read, which basically means your opportunity is to mark it as having read it. That language is going to change with the production system. If you've been in the production system, it's a little bit more straightforward. It says, I certify and confirm that this information is correct, or words to that effect. So that's one small change between the demo version that I've been using here for the presentations and the actual production version. Here are some of the reminders or notes that the system supplies to you. Obviously, there's some generic stuff about that we've always encouraged people to do, namely, no matter what, you probably want to check with the town or municipality about local ordinances. You never know what some of the organized towns require for harvesting, and that's their prerogative as home rule states, towns. Make sure that you understand all the rules. You know, this notification system is not a substitute for understanding what all the rules are that apply. And obviously the best way to do that is to plan in advance. The system obviously will allow you to enter information, and it goes electronically to all the parties. You can enter the information, sign it, certify it, and get the other parties to certify it all in the space of, you know, probably an hour or less if you've got all your ducks in a row. But certainly planning ahead of time makes this whole system work much, much better. There are a number of possible harvest reminders, but nothing applies for this notification that I submitted, so it just tells you there are no important reminders. I didn't identify anything related to road construction in this one. So again, there are no important reminders. There's one reminder with respect to the water crossing that I mapped. Remember, this is keying back to the information, the activities that you actually mapped. So in this case, I identified a permanent water crossing that I was going to build and install in an organized town, and therefore it's telling me that a permit by rule is going to be required. It's not telling me how to do that or anything like that. That system is also on our website, but it's just a reminder that that's going to be needed and part of the process of getting this job underway. At the bottom of that whole summary list is this last sort of certify button. You'll notice that the last item I have not yet checked yet, and so this certify button is still gray. I can't check that until I've certified or confirmed all of the information in the summary list. So it's a matter of 5 minutes to read through it and say, yep, everything's correct, everything's confirmed, and then you'll be able to go ahead and certify this notification as the notifier. That's what this looks like now. I've looked at the map and checked that. I've looked at the activity details, reviewed that, checked that. Maine Forest Service contacts basically tells me who the district forester is, who where the ranger office is located, some other contact information like that, other important reminders. Once I've confirmed all of that, now this button is live and I can certify as the notifier and get it sent off to everybody else. That particular process looks like this. You as the notifier are saying, and again, this relates directly to how I entered this notification as the designated agent. I'm acknowledging that I, as the designated agent and the licensed forester, certify the answers are correct. As a designated agent, I understand that I have some responsibilities for this operation. And I understand also, based on the way the system is set up, that the notification isn't actually active and live and doesn't have a FON number associated with it yet until all the parties have certified that they accept and acknowledge this notification. So once I've checked all those boxes, this acknowledge and certify information button becomes live, and I can send it off to everyone else. It's really important to note that once I've acknowledged and certified, I can't go back and make any changes anymore, because if I did, then I'd have to get, you know, a new set of signatures for an altered notification. It's going to go complete to the other people in the notification to certify. So once I've clicked that button, it tells me it's successfully certified, and basically within a minute or two, like other electronic systems, the emails have essentially been sent off to the other parties within seconds. So I can look at the summary information, I can look at the notification itself, all the information, but I can't edit the information any longer. If I go back to my dashboard, essentially the only thing that I can do with this pending certification notification is to withdraw it. If I needed to make changes, I could still withdraw it at this point. Once everybody's certified, you can no longer withdraw that notification. So this just describes a little bit what we've been talking about. Once the notification is complete, everybody gets an email link to the notification. Landowner, harvester, etc., whoever was not the notifier that still needs to certify this. It's possible that if you're the landowner and you're entering the notification, you're going to be doing the harvesting. Essentially, you play all the roles on the notification. You might be done. But if there are other people, other users who have to acknowledge this notification, they will get this email link and essentially have the opportunity to review the information, confirm that it's correct, and essentially click a button to sign the notification. If for some reason, and again, this is a reason why you might not want to share your FOResT ID with others or too widely. If for some reason you get an email notification to sign a notification that you're not connected to, you don't know anything about it, or some of the information, whoever put the information in did it wrong, you don't have to sign the notification. You can certainly decline to sign it. However, if you do sign it, FOResT system will send out that completed information along with the 7-digit notification number to everybody, and you can also print a posting sheet directly from FOResT. This is essentially, it's altered a little bit, but this is essentially what it looks like when you get an email saying, hey, you've been identified as a party to a notification that's been created, in this case, by somebody else, Fred Lord in this case, and it's pending certification, and you've been identified as someone connected to it. Here's the link to go to certify your involvement with that notification. Greg will take some slightly closer look at that process, but again, it's very straightforward. It's a lot like any other kind of electronic user accounts that you've seen. The timeline is essentially that as of January 1st, the notification system through FOResT is live and available. You can create accounts, you can create notifications, et cetera, et cetera. The system is in place, although as Greg noted, there will be tweaks along the way, as with any electronic system. Any notifications that have already been submitted on paper will remain valid, just as they would have normally in the previous system for the whole harvest period, so up to 2 years from the time they were submitted. It's our intention as we kind of make this transition to the new system to continue to accept notifications until the end of March, essentially, and those could be valid for up to 2 years. Certainly, we'd encourage people, if you're at all able to use the new system, to make the transition, happen a little bit more quickly, but you do still have that option until the end of March. We certainly recognize that there will be questions. We'll take some time to ask questions now, and again, I might refer some folks to Greg when he does his demo, because I think quite a bit of this will become more clear. But you can certainly also call us. You can send us an email to the FOResT info line or FOResT info email address. Greg Lord has created a web page connected with FOResT. It does have some how-to videos, has recordings of past presentations. This PowerPoint presentation will go up on that shortly. It also has a set of instructions, full set of instructions, and a live link to basically go to the home page and start using the system. So certainly there's lots of information out there. It's new for everyone, including us. We've done our best to make it workable and useful and have some of those really advantageous features that Dan was describing. But we'll take a few questions now, I think, Greg, and certainly might defer some of them for the demo, which I think will be helpful in solidifying some of this information. So I am going to stop sharing and go back to the meeting and turn it back over to Greg or Dan for any additional or clarifying comments. And Greg, do you want to entertain a few questions now, or do you want to give folks a chance to take a break? How do you want to play this?
Yeah, thanks, Mort. If anybody has any questions right now, we can take a few now.
I have a question. This Merle Ray.
Hi, Merle.
Hey, Merle.
First of all, I want to compliment you guys. This a lot of work has gone into this. Obviously, I can't imagine the number of what ifs you guys had to go through to get this. Seems like a really good system. But my question is, once someone has a FOResT notification number and it gets posted on the site and that's available to anyone walking by, can anybody access that FOResT notification number by going into the system and finding out details about the harvest?
Thanks, Merle. Yeah, the number itself is there's no way to, as the public, to access other parties' notifications. When you log into FOResT, again, reiterating the importance of that FOResT ID and keeping it secure, is you would log in under your account and you would only be able to see the notifications that you're involved in. You wouldn't be able to do a blanket search on a notification that you're not associated with. So there is some security or protection there for everyone.
Okay, thank you. And I guess a follow-up question is when the rangers do their inspections, I'm sure that they're tied into this system so that they can put that notification number into their system and get the information.
Yeah, the system's set up, internally. When we log in as state staff, we're able to see more information. Be able to search statewide for all notifications, but from a non-FOResT service staff or public person, they would not have that ability.
Okay, and just a final comment. A logical extension to this is the year-end report going online and being digital as well. Is that in the works?
Yes, it's you'll, in the full demo that I'll do, you'll see it's built, and we have it set up now to turn on. It'll be, I think, December 1st of 2021 on active notifications within FOResT. So that it's been built out. The plan is probably later in the year, summer, fall, would be to do a series of demos similar to this, specifically on landowner reports.
Awesome. That'll be a big help as well. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, we could take a 10-minute break. There's no need to leave the room.
Can I talk right now?
Sure.
Hello, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Dave Pierce. If all landowners have to set up an account, what have you guys figured out about older landowners who don't have a computer or don't want to be bothered by the process? Don't you think this will lessen the number of private woodlots being cut?
Yeah, I'll take that, Dave. You're right. Certainly, a lot of questions that we've received have been about how to deal with that. And the honest answer is that there are a few options for folks. Certainly, if they don't have a computer, there are public computers available and so forth. And that's not terribly satisfying for some folks. But we're looking at basically moving the whole system over to what just about every other industry has done in terms of electronic processes. So I definitely recognize that there's an issue there. I don't think in the long run that this is going to really be a complete stopper to most folks, and I don't want to make that the final answer, because as I said, a lot of people have asked that same question. But as it's currently constructed, we don't have a different process for people who don't have who don't or choose not to have electronic access. So that's the best answer I can give at this point. But thanks for asking it. As I said, a number of people have asked the same question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll add just a little bit. The FOResT itself as a whole is not built yet to be totally mobile, so you would be able to use it on a cell phone. The intent is to go there eventually, but through testing, we found that you can use your phone to set up an account, as well as to acknowledge your participation in the notification. So it's not a complete, fix, but it's an option. And I think in one of the other past sessions, I think one of the foresters or loggers said, well, gee, I can bring my phone with me and visit the landowner and kind of walk them through it on my device. And that's definitely an option. Any other questions?
Yeah, we got one more quick question, I believe.
Sure.
Hi, this is Mark DeShane with BPL, and I got a couple questions. Can you hear me okay, or?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. This is just like a technical question. Can you draw roads on the map, on the LUPC map, and not have it believe that you're building a new road there? Can you just draw an existing road on there without it thinking that you're building a new road?
Not right now. The intent is just to be, the roads you would be drawing would be new roads for new road construction. Maybe down the road we'll have the ability for people to upload, sort of background shape files, I guess would be the right term to use.
Because this is something that we commonly do on the paper map all the time, because there's very few roads are on the LUPC maps. So if you just draw a road in the middle of nowhere, when you're building a new road, you get the notification kick back saying, what does this road connect to? So then we draw in by hand usually the existing roads that are not on the LUPC map. So if we just draw a new road now, that's not connected to anything, is it going to get kicked back?
I don't believe we have a mechanism installed in there now to go ahead and do that. So if you just drew a new road in there and it didn't connect to anything, that would probably be fine.
Okay, good. Another question, I work for the public lands and we have three, as you probably all know, we have three regions. And we were thinking, for simplicity's sake, that if we had one user ID for each region, possibly, instead of for 6 different foresters in each region, it might be simpler for everybody. You guys agree with that, or?
I think we'd have to talk about that a little bit more, Mark, to kind of understand where you're coming from. I'll say again that in previous sessions, how to identify a landowner or a party that is a kind of a bigger entity, how to do that in the most straightforward way. That question's come up as well. So
Yeah.
I think we probably have to talk about it a little bit. I'm sure that there's a way to do that that gives you kind of some level of efficiency and also makes it clear, who's doing what kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I just thought maybe we could have our own individual emails and then maybe have the same FOResT ID number, or I'm not sure what you guys would like or how it would work. But
as the system is set up right now, one email matches up to one FOResT ID. So
okay. Yeah.
So there's not really a way to have multiple
Users on one ID.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless they were all accessing the same email address, essentially.
Yeah. As far as for us, like the foresters here fill out the FONs, and the landowner is the state of Maine, and we are the harvester in general. So how would it work for the landowner to have to approve these notifications? Or would they have to at all?
Again, I think that's going to be something of a process to talk through how you might best do that with a landowner that's that's an entity rather than an individual, and so not 100% certain what the best solution is, but I'm sure there is one that would be satisfactory to everyone.
Yeah, we probably need to set up a meeting with BPL and with the regional managers and have a discussion about how to proceed with BPL.
Okay, yep. Yeah, that's all I had. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
This is Merle Ring again. I have a suggestion, possible solution to your problem of landowners who don't have computers. And it needs some thinking through for sure, but use the designated agent's email account, have a different FOResT ID number for the landowner. That way the landowner has access to the system through the designated agent's email, but of course there'd have to be some protections built in. But that's just a suggestion.
Well, the difficulty with that, Merle, is that one email address can only have one FOResT ID connected to it. So it's a strict 1-to-1 ratio. There's been quite a bit of discussion back and forth and suggestions and ideas, and I'm sure this topic will get more discussion. I'm certain of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be less and less of a problem as time goes on, but it's still out there.
Yep, understood.
Yeah, looking at the comments, there was the last one was about amendments, and we're still working on the process of being able to accept amendments within FOResT. In fact, we have an internal meeting this afternoon to cover that topic. So it's one of those things that will, it's one of those features you'll see in the future. It's just we haven't pinned down the exact process on doing that. If there are no other questions, I think it's a good time to take a break for 10 minutes.